Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to the party, pal!
You're my boy, bro!
Yo, Adrian!
A podcast with interviews of amazing guests from the world of pop culture.
Oh, yeah!
TV.
Nice!
Movies.
Oh, I love the movies!
Comedy and more. From deep inside the Man Cave, your host, Elias.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles. This week, I had the pleasure of talking to Patrick Gilmore from the Netflix series Travelers. We had a great talk. We talked about his career in the acting world, his love of flying planes, and meeting his idol Harrison Ford. Make sure you check out the podcast on our website, www.themccpodcast.com, where you can find all the latest news and archive episodes. You can also find our social media handles and email on the website as well. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It was a great time talking to Patrick. Patrick, welcome to the cave.
Thank you, Elias.
What's going on with you, man? What's new with you?
Oh, you know, rocking and rolling and whatnot. It's been a busy year, and now I'm just kind of settling in for Christmas.
There you go. You taking a little break?
Yeah, from work. You know, there would be some bit of promotion for Travelers, and which doesn't feel like work. And yeah, and then I'll just be putting my feet up and getting drunk on eggnog.
There's nothing wrong with that. So
yeah.
So I want the listeners to get a little bit more about you. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada. And if you're not familiar with that area, I always liken it to the Texas of Canada. We're cowboys and oil and cattle and, you know, we're real country folk.
Oh, there you go. So did you grow up like in a ranch?
No, but I grew up on an acreage, which sounds a lot grander than it is. It was a subdivision, but we were out in the middle, you know, surrounded by fields, and you know, didn't have any TV back in the day to speak of. I think we had 2 channels, and I was never allowed inside for Saturday morning cartoons, so it was outside and climbing trees and in the fields with I was lucky enough that my 2 best friends grew up right next door to me. I mean, they were born and raised there, and we became best friends, but they were my age, and we're still best friends to this day.
Oh, that's great.
And we just ran through the fields and played G.I. Joe and Star Wars, and, you know, just kind of, it really fostered an imagination, I think, that I don't know if I would have had if I had stuck around and watched TV all day.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, that's kind of a good thing that, you know, your parents forced you to go outside, because like, these days, some of these kids, you know, that's all they know is TV and iPads in their faces.
Yeah, I mean, every generation has that. You know, in my day, it was much better, and so I don't know how that'll affect this generation. But I'm grateful that I didn't. I wasn't placed in front of a TV and babysat that way. That I had the experience of climbing a tree and building a fort, and I still feed off those memories, and I still use that in my work.
Yeah. Were you into sports at all growing up?
Yeah, my dad was a professional athlete, so sports were really encouraged, especially team sports. And so my dad was a hockey player, but they got my brother and I into downhill skiing, because skiing was something we could kind of do as a family on vacation. And so my brother and I became downhill racers for Alberta Alpine.
Wow.
And then that was our winter sport. And then we both played football. I really got into football. I was a running back, and we tested out other things too. I played hockey 1 year, and I think I played soccer when I was 5. But it was mostly football and skiing.
Yeah. How did you not end up following like your dad's footsteps to try to be a professional hockey player? Were you not into it as much as he was?
No, we always were, but they never really forced us into anything. And so if I go back and I think of everything I wanted to be all growing up, it was it was things like that my dad had done, like being a pilot and being a professional athlete. And I was convinced I was going to be a downhill skier. And then I wanted to, I found the value in making my friends laugh in school. And so I remember writing in one of those grade school journal things, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I said, I'm going to be a comedian. Having no idea what that meant, I just knew the comedians made people laugh. And then you just kind of, I just stopped thinking about it. And then it was somewhere around junior high when they start telling you, you need to start deciding because university and college is coming up. And I really enjoyed acting.
So so you acted in high school in the theater, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, I did plays. My football coach was the drama teacher one year, and he was kind of the first guy that said that you can actually do this as a living. And so to get everyone off my back, I just said, yeah, okay, then I'll be an actor. But again, I'm in the middle of nowhere as far as film and television goes. But I was lucky enough that Edmonton, where I grew up, is one of the richest theater communities in, I dare say, North America. Their Fringe Festival is the second biggest Fringe Festival in the world next to Edinburgh. And so I was able to, after high school, kind of find my way into community theater and local theater. And through that, just stumbled into TV.
Wow.
And if you're going to make a living out of acting, you can't really stick around, a place that's just theater. Because as fulfilling as theater is, it doesn't pay the bills. Yeah. So I had to make a move, and I moved to Vancouver in Canada because it was close to home, and they had a healthy and have one of the healthiest film communities.
Yeah. So when you told your parents that that's what you wanted to get into, how did that go?
I wish that it had gone harder than it did, because in those years where work is tough and I'm struggling to pay the bills, I think, God, why didn't they kick my ass and get me to, get an employable degree like accountant or engineer? But they were so supportive, and they believed so. Whatever my brother and I decided to do, they said, great, okay. I mean, we had to think logically about how you were going to pursue it. In my case, they insisted that I get a college university degree, just so I had something to back me up. And as soon as I had that, which would ensure that in the future I could, find more work with a post-secondary degree, that after that I could do whatever the hell I wanted. And they're my biggest fans. I've been really lucky.
That's great. And you did end up going to college, correct?
Yeah, I got a degree in English literature and history, which doesn't really make you employable, but it's I can always go back and get an education degree, but that degree itself has also informed the way I act and tell stories. That's what history is. It's storytelling, and that's what English is the story structure.
So I read online that you were going for your pilot license, and you had a good conversation with Harrison Ford. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a conversation might be stretching it. We exchanged words.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to go to the Living Legends of Aviation Awards last year, and Harrison was presenting that night. So at the end of the evening, I approached him, and he was on his way out. And I mean, he's Harrison Ford, so I mean, everybody wants a piece of his time. But Harrison was one of these guys that was a lighthouse for me, in a sense. He was a hero. I wanted to do what he did, and he felt like an everyday kind of hero. He didn't feel like a superhero. He was the reluctant hero. Yeah. And he felt like someone you knew, and I grew up in the 80s, so it was George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and so here I was after 40 some years standing in front of my hero, and I got to shake his hand, and I told him that I was in the midst of getting my pilot's license, which he was very encouraging about, and I also got the opportunity to say I'm also an actor, and I just wanted to thank you because you're the reason I am an actor. Yeah. And, he's a, he has a reputation of being a kind of a gruff guy. So and you always hear never meet your heroes, but he couldn't have been more generous with his time, took a photo with me and, encouraged me, said, keep at it, both aspects, the flying and the acting. Yeah. And the whole interaction probably lasted all of 30 seconds to a minute. To me, I mean, I could break it down to a half hour of details, but it was just the ability to thank somebody that you look up to for his inspiration and his work, and I got that opportunity, so
That's
it was amazing.
I mean, like you said, like I grew up in the '80s too, so right away we think of Indiana Jones or we think Star Wars, and it's like, and you get to meet somebody you probably watched Indiana Jones and Star Wars more than 100 times, I assume. In your lifetime.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. And that's the weird thing about this celebrity culture is, and I'm sure this has happened to you, where you've been at a coffee shop and you've seen someone, you go, God, I know that person. Where do I know? Did I go to school with that person? And occasionally I'll approach and I'll just say, I'm sorry, did we know each other? No. And then it'll occur to me, oh, right, you were on Dawson's Creek. Or because you spend hours watching this person's face. Yeah. That's the beauty of film and television is you can affect people. You can convey a relationship. You can create a relationship with complete strangers just by emoting and being there. And it's hard for me to think that I don't know who Harrison Ford is. I've met him, but because I've spent hours, if not days, watching him go through all these, scenarios, and it's a very weird sensation.
So, how close are you to getting your pilot license?
Well, I've done all the flying part of it. I just need to write the exams, right? The tests. Okay. And I was about to do it, and when Travelers came around, and Travelers, there's a couple reasons. Number one, it kept me busy. Number two, they don't really enjoy the idea of, for insurance reasons, their actors jumping into airplanes, with so few hours. But once I get meteorology and navigation down, then I'll be confident enough to go in there and write that exam and get back up in the air.
Now, what does that entail? Is there a lot of, I assume there's a lot of math in that.
Yeah, the math isn't as bad. I never paid attention in school when we were talking about weather and meteorology. Okay. So, you're talking about different cloud structures and low pressures and high pressures and being able to read it and understand it and being able to compensate your flying accordingly. That's new to me. Navigations that's almost, if there's any math, it's that, but it's, it's all fun. It's just, the problem is I've been out of school for so long that studying those sorts of topics are a little tough, but
it's understandable.
It'll get it done.
Yeah. So now you've been on a few shows, Stargate and Travelers. How did you get into this whole sci-fi world thing? Was this something you wanted to approach, or it just happened?
It just happened. It's Vancouver is a hub for sci-fi, and there are many reasons, and I don't pretend to know all of them, but one of them is just the geography of Vancouver. You can kind of have anything you want in any couple hours in every direction. And so back in the 80s when X-Files came in and Battlestar and Stargate started in the 90s. Yeah. And it just kind of became a call of port for sci-fi shows. So starting your career in Vancouver, you're bound to end up on a sci-fi show in one way or another. I was lucky enough to experience some of my favorite, like Battlestar, and I was a huge Stargate fan. The movie was so great. So I got to pop in and do those two series, and then ended up as a regular on the third series. Wow. And And I am lucky to have done that because sci-fi has something that other genres don't have, and that's the fans. I mean, medical dramas, I'm sure they have their fans. Yeah. But sci-fi fans, it's a completely different universe. It's indescribable. Yeah.
It's kind of like the superhero world there with the DC and Marvel and those shows. In a way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just, people travel across the world just to be with the fans of that similar genre. And, when you're an actor in that genre, you're part of that family and part of that support structure, which follows you, in your career. I have, friends and fans on social media, which is, a new thing as well to me, that, saw me in something 10 years ago, and they still continue to support, and it's humbling.
Your social media game is pretty strong. I notice you put up stories every few hours on Instagram.
Well, that's kind of you. I know that my publicist would disagree with you. I feel like I should be posting more, and when I compare it to like my co-star Mackenzie Porter, who I think is one of the best on social media. Yeah, I'm kind of a private guy, so I think that's where the struggle comes in of what to post. But if I keep it light and entertaining and informative and things that interest me, hoping that it'll interest other people, it's a great tool.
What do you prefer more, Instagram or Twitter?
I would have said Twitter up until about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And then all hell broke loose in America, and it's now just become a source of news and frustration and anxiety that I go on Twitter. I'm addicted to, the phone tracks which apps you open, and it's Instagram, Twitter, Instagram, Instagram, Twitter. It's constant. But if I had to choose, it would be Instagram, because Instagram's a little lighter. Yeah. Twitter is just, it's become quite depressing. It's the Trump show now. Instagram still has maintained its identity as a collage of a snapshot of people's lives and positivity. So
I agree with
I think I'm all but off of Facebook now.
You're off Facebook?
I haven't deleted my account. Yeah, but I've deleted the apps, and I've deleted the links, the bookmarks, and really trying to stay off it, because it doesn't offer me anything, and it sure has some bad press in the last couple of years, and I don't think I want to contribute to any of that. But
I got mixed feelings about that too, because it's like, I always tell my wife, like, the reason I have Facebook is to talk to relatives in Greece. Other than that,
100%.
Other than that, I really don't need it anymore.
Yeah, if my mom and my cousins and my aunts and everything weren't on Facebook, I would immediately delete it. But I still want to see my nieces and my nephews' pictures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us about your audition for The Travelers, and how did you land that role?
I had worked with Brad Wright, who created Travelers, on Stargate.
Okay.
And I got to know Brad really well about 10 years ago. And then when that show ended, Brad kind of went to his man cave to write, and I went off to, try to make a living. And so a few years ago, when this audition came up, of course, I jumped at the opportunity to work with Brad again. And I was sitting outside. I think the first audition, he wasn't there. And then the second audition, this is the screen test. I was waiting in the parking lot, and when Brad was coming in, I had arrived early because I was so nervous. And Brad knocked on the window, and we had a big hug and a little chit chat. And just as he was leaving, he said, by the way, I wrote this role for you. So, no pressure. And then he turns around and walks inside. And he states to this day that, he had completely intended on writing this role for me.
That's great.
And what's fun about that, it was flattering and humbling. But what was fun about that is when I read it, it made sense. It had that same melody that we had played with in Stargate. It had, I understand Brad's dialogue. He has such a talent for writing fun dialogue. And it made complete sense to me. And so when I heard that it was written in the direction of me, then it all kind of fit into place. So, so I've spent the last 3 years just trying to make sure that he hasn't regretted that decision.
So you played David Mahler or Mailer? How you pronounce the last name for that?
Mailer.
David
Mailer.
So how close is that character to like you?
He's bound to have a lot of me in him. I think the biggest difference is that he's a very optimistic, very open person. I'm more cynical and a little more private, but he's. I wish I was more like David, I think is the point of all this. And he's affable, and he's a bit bumbling and fish out of water in a lot of circumstances because he set up his life when we meet David. He's a very structured, kind of a lonely person, to be honest. He gets his interactions with his work as a social worker, but it's when he meets Marcy, one of these time travelers, that his life kind of opens up, but also, rattles the cage a bit, rocks the boat. In answer to your question, there's a bit of me in him, but I wish I was more like him.
Yeah. So was it easy for you to prepare for that role?
To be honest, the first 2 episodes were tough. I think with any role that you're creating, that you're starting out with, it's tough finding those idiosyncrasies and that pattern of caricature. And it was a constant reminder of all the things that I wanted to put into David. And then eventually after, you've done it for 2 or 3 episodes, those become second nature. And so going into the 3rd season, I knew this guy. I had missed this guy. I hadn't been around him in a year. Initially it was, you're tiptoeing around making sure that, is this something David would do? Is this how David would do it? Okay. But that's all fun. That's the fun of acting and creating.
Now you have a lot of scenes with Mackenzie. How is it working with her and in the chemistry between you two?
I remember in that screen test having a chat with the director and Brad and them describing the character of Marcy to me, and they hadn't found Mackenzie yet. And so they said, she's got to play this type of role, and she's got to be able to do this and kick ass, and it goes through all these attributes that this character and this actor needed to bring to it. And we kind of sat in silence, and then I laughed. And I said, well, good luck with that. And then about a week later, I got a message on Facebook from Mackenzie, who I'd known for a few years, saying that she had booked this role. And I just said, of course, that makes so much sense. And thank God for it. Mackenzie and I have become really close friends, and it's we know each other's work ethics now and patterns, and it's really easy working with Mackenzie.
That's great.
She's just a wealth of talent, and a great communicator and a great support structure. You can throw out things as an actor, make wild choices, and it'll never rattle her, and she'll come back with something, even better. And I've really lucked out with Mackenzie Porter.
That's great. Now, do you have a favorite scene for your character on the show, or a favorite scene that you're with Mackenzie on the show?
Yeah, if I had a favorite scene, it would be with Mackenzie. I'm just trying to think, 'cause there's just some really, really sweet moments that we've had. I think this might not be my favorite scene, but this is the one that's popping into mind. Season 2, when I steal Mackenzie's lottery numbers, because that's how the Travelers finance their operation. They have lottery numbers, and they play small stakes lotteries. And I happen to just glance over and take her numbers, and so I win some money too. And and at the end, she comes home, and I tell her how I've spent all my money, and I did this and I did that, and she's so supportive, and it's just a beautiful scene of revealing kind of who David is, and Marcy completely accepting and loving David for that. It just, I think those moments, I mean, the show is very, it's an action sci-fi show. But the reason why there's so much action sci-fi is because they're fighting to save moments like that moment with Marcy and David. This, it's just any scene with Marcy, any scene with Mackenzie.
So the show's about, time travel and everything. If you can really do time travel, where would you go and why?
I would have liked to have known me as a little kid. I bet you I would have found myself entertaining. But I think that I would have liked to have gone 1920s Paris, I think is the answer I usually give. Okay. Just that whole kind of expat bohemian, Hemingway and Fitzgerald, Ezra Pound, just, that whole kind of literary groups and bohemian lifestyle, I think it really attracts me. I'd like to see that.
You mentioned, we mentioned earlier, we both grew up in the 80s. 80s was pretty, for time travel shows and movies. I assume you were a big fan of Back to the Future.
Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah.
Was there any
other... I mean, there was...
Go ahead.
There was an online poll recently that top Back to the Future is the number one show people want to remake. And I think that'd be a mistake. But, other time travel shows you're asking?
Yeah, were there other time travel movies or shows that you enjoyed?
In the 80s, I mean, every time there was one, it would make an impact. Whether or not they were like shows I liked are different. But anytime there's a time travel show, I watch it. I'm addicted to it, and it's funny because I don't have that same sort of relationship with Travelers that you might have because I'm involved in it, right? Travelers is a show I wish I could watch without knowing anything. But I remember there was a movie called Millennium with, I think was it Chris Christopherson and God, that was about, it was the big where it was kind of interesting. They would somehow take like an airliner that was about to crash and take everybody off that airline just before it crashed and put dummies in there so that they could repopulate the future. Do you remember that movie at all?
No, I don't.
There's a really cool concept. And then, of course, there's Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
Yeah.
That was cool. Back to the Future, of course. God, what else was there? Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, yeah. Was
one of my favorite TV shows. Yeah. And, we've got elements of Quantum Leap in Travelers, which I love. Anything that pops up time travel, I'm a sucker for it.
Now, do you enjoy recording these series where they're only like 8 to 10 episodes, especially for like Netflix?
Yeah, I feel like the days of 22 episodes a season are kind of going away, and I think that's going to help the quality of television. I've always admired the British form of, 6 episodes to a series and then a Christmas special. Yeah. And they'll do two series, and that'll be the end of it. Who was I talking to recently? I think it was a man from Iraq. I think it was saying that their TV shows always just go for one season, and then that's it. Wow. Because I think the quality suffers when you're trying to fill 20 episodes for 10 seasons, and this way you've got a story to tell and you've got a concise time frame to tell it, and there's no filler. There's no need for it. And especially in this now with the advent of binging shows,
Correct.
which is the culture now. People, I mean, I don't know how a 22 episode season dropping on Netflix would fare. Who knows? Maybe they'd love it because there's just more to binge. But I feel like people's attention spans there's just too much to watch.
Yeah.
I could watch 2 series, instead of 1.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of like the 10 episode seasons too.
Yeah, they're tight. I think the toughest part is that you got to wait a year for the next 10.
Correct.
That's tough.
Yeah, you're right about that. Are you? Is there any favorite shows that you enjoy lately on Netflix? Do you have Netflix or Hulu or?
I do. Yeah, I just got Netflix. Honestly, I just finished watching The Final Table, which is a cooking competitive show, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, I find that given with the news and given everything else that's going on, when I have time to sit down and watch TV, I'm watching things like The Great British Bake Off or the Mary Tyler Moore Show or the Andy Griffith Show.
There's nothing
things
wrong with that.
Just kind of no, and it's a simplified time, but it's funny because I'll be watching the Andy Griffith Show and it'll be a dramatic episode where a drifter comes to town. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna kill somebody. He's gonna find Opie and he's gonna kill him. And I realize I'm like, no, the worst that's gonna happen. He's gonna loiter and then he'll become friendly and get a job and everything turns out right.
Yeah,
but
right
we're so accustomed to the twist and something dark happening that it's nice to kind of remind yourself like, oh no, this is just everything's good. This is Disney. Yeah. We're all happy. Everyone's going to end up fine. And I'm finding I'm needing that more and more.
Yeah. So, you've worked hard your whole life in the acting world. What are some past projects that had the biggest, impact on you think?
I think just creatively, my role on The Killing was a fun turning point for me. I was in 4 episodes of the first season, and I got to play a really kind of a colorful character. And I mean, I think everyone's like this. They'll look back at things they did and say, oh, I could have done it better. I wish I'd have done this and that. And although I do feel that way with The Killing, I should be still proud that I was given the opportunity and was able to play such a colorful, unlikable character. So creatively, that was a bright moment for me, just pushing my boundaries. Because in theater, I was playing women, I was playing children, I was playing 100-year-old men. You play the roles that are given, and you make it work. And sometimes, it's fitting a square peg into a round hole, but it's fun trying to do it. But you get into film and television, and there's just so much talent, competing for the same roles, and the writing isn't like theater, and so you kind of end up playing guy next door, deputy number 2, friend next door, a guy at bar drinking beer. It's all the same stuff over and over again, and your kind of comfort zone atrophies, and you play the same thing over and over again. So to get an opportunity like The Killing, where I was playing this coked up billionaire, was just like being back in theater. And yeah, that's something that always sticks out with me.
So, you met fans throughout your career. What's some advice do you give to somebody that tells you they want to become an actor? What do you tell them?
Don't wait for it to come to you. Just do it. And that's the beauty of now with YouTube and cameras on your phone. When I grew up, I had to take my dad's video camera when he wasn't using it and edit VCR to VCR. And then the only people that saw it were the people that had a VHS tape. Yeah. That I handed around and don't lose this. That was how I started. Now you can make a video right now and have 1,000 views by dinner time.
You're right about that.
Just do it. Yeah. There's no one stopping you, but once you start doing it, I made this mistake when I first started was, I arrived in Vancouver and I said, okay, I'm here. And I waited for the phone to ring. And no one's looking for you. Nobody needs you. you have to make yourself available and in their line of sight. So get out there, do it, and what's the word I'm looking for? You go and you meet people, you get involved in the community, you go to film festivals, and you branch out and you meet more people, and now you know a sound guy, and you and he are going to make a movie, and now you've met a director, and now she's going to bring you on to her next film, and it's all relationships and keeping that momentum going.
Networking is a big key.
Networking, that's the word I'm trying to think of. Yeah, it's doing it yourself and networking. That's 80% of it.
Do you have like a dream role that you want to play someday? Do you want like someday to go into like the comedy world? Or do you want to stay with the sci-fi?
I'd love to get into the comedy world, and I've been lucky that a lot of my sci-fi stuff has been, peppered with comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to do that, but I'd like to get back to the stage. I think that's going to break down some paradigms and comfort zone issues that I have, and get back to why I was an actor to begin with, full immersion in that fantasy. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to be confident enough that, in my career, that I can take the time off of film and television to do theater.
Yeah. Especially when you're doing, like you said, when you're doing the short episodes, you have time to, or when you're done with that, you can go do theater and then come back to filming your show again.
Yeah. But I suffer from something that most actors suffer from, is that the moment that a show's over, we say to ourselves, I'm never going to work again. So as it stands, I'm unemployed right now and convinced I'm never going to work again. But history showed me that that's not true. So maybe I'll be able to fit in a play soon.
So you've done a lot of interviews and podcasts. What's something that you wish you got asked that you never do on a podcast or interview?
Oh, that's good. What's funny about podcasts is that I always want to do them, and then when I do, I don't want to talk about myself. I'm so sick and tired of talking about myself. Yeah. I want to talk about other issues. I want to talk about movies that we're both excited about, or fun scenes, or I really want to talk about anything other than myself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not why I get invited on. But I listen to so many podcasts that I sometimes have to take a break and remind myself to listen to music. Yeah. Because there's so much out there, and I always, whenever I'm trying to sell people on podcasts or on road trips, I'm like, what do you do like on these long road trips? I'm like, oh, I don't know. We'll play I Spy, listen to the radio. I'm like, oh my God, if you get on a podcast, you can create the perfect talk radio station for yourself of every subject.
Correct. And
celebrity and any topic that you want. And there's it's like Netflix. There's just so much out there. I'm discovering. I just downloaded a new one, and I was downloading it last night. And I was so excited for it, and then I went, oh my God, I'm never gonna have time to listen to this. I've got hundreds of hours of other shows I need to listen to.
You're right. That's how my iPhone is. It's full of podcasts. I'm like, well, I'll listen to some of it at the gym or at work, and then I'm like, all right, well, now what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
It's like they're just so backed up, and between that, I have a family, kids.
Right.
There's just not enough hours in a day, like we say.
There isn't. But what a great time to live in, that we have this much access to information. Yeah. And because I'm constantly learning. Like I'll listen to this podcast on old Hollywood, and then I'll listen to this on the Fermi paradox, or you're in school. You're just giving me more information. Yeah. And so anytime that my phone, is running out of room, I know I have to go to podcast and delete, 100.
Yeah, there you go. So you said, I got a question for you then. It's the holiday season. What is one of your favorite holiday movies?
Charlie Brown Christmas is number one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that on repeat. But this year I'm going to watch A Christmas Story, because I feel like I've only watched that once. And then last week I watched Holiday Inn, which is it's a great movie. Unfortunately, it still has this just horrible moment where they're all in blackface, which is really uncomfortable. But and I think another one I might watch this year is Bells of St. Mary.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or.
Oh, I got that one last year. Die Hard, maybe. I might throw Die Hard in.
Home Alone, or Scrooge with Bill Murray. I think Scrooge
is another great one.
Scrooge with Bill Murray is one of those movies where I don't think a lot of people just feel the love for it. I'm like, you really got to understand Bill Murray and his character in this.
I saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it in theaters, and there's that great moment at the end where everyone's singing.
I don't.
Put a little love in your heart.
Yeah.
Remember,
yes.
And then he breaks the fourth wall and starts talking to the audience, going, "Now you in the left side of the theater. Come on, let's hear it. Okay, now just the ladies. Do you remember that part?
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember the theater actually doing that. It was really. It was
funny. I think that's how Bill Murray would be. Like in an environment like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's legend.
Yeah. So what's 2019 looking for you?
Well, I hope it's busy, but we'll find out about season 4 hopefully sometime in January. I'm doing the 5th season of You, Me, Her. I hope. There's a couple. Actually, I'm in 3 shows right now, and I'm just waiting to hear on pickups for all 3 of them. So as it stands right now, like I said, I'm never working again. I'm unemployed.
Yeah. No movies or anything?
I just finished a movie called Endless with Scott Spear directing, and Alexander Shipp's in that, and Nicholas Hamilton, and I just wrapped that up. God, was it Friday?
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know when that's coming out, but that was a lot of fun to film. So, there'll be with Travelers kind of coming out and Endless coming out, and then these 2 other shows that I'm coming out in 2019. I think I'll just be promoting a lot, and
that's great.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
And lastly, how can the listeners find you on your favorite social media platform?
At Patrick Gilmore. That's Twitter and Instagram. It's at Patrick Gilmore. Twitter is more kind of ends up being political, but Instagram is a lot of fun, and I like doing the stories.
There you go.
Yeah.
Patrick, this was a blast. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, man. Yeah, hey, thanks for chatting with me.
So, let's get you back on next year.
Okay, let's do it.